Glad to have you back. Nigeria's lingering fuel scarcity has continued to bite harder as queues still remain at various filling stations across the country, causing commuters to struggle to attend their various businesses, while commercial bus drivers have taken advantage of the precarious situation to increase transport fares. This development has made fuel marketers and depot owners continue to trade blames over the pricing mechanism of the product, as some marketers are now selling beyond the federal government-approved pump price of 165 naira per litre due to the hike in the depot prices. Regrettably, as the scarcity bites harder, regulatory authorities in the nation's oil and gas industry have insisted that the pump price of the product has not been adjusted, adding that the country currently has a 32-day fuel sufficiency. The big question begging for answer is now who's to be blamed or who should be held responsible for the persistent fuel scarcity we are currently being faced with in the country. And let's try to get some answers. My guest is a senior energy analyst. She's with Stairs Business. Well, she's a regular in the house, Noelle Okodi. Noelle, thank you so much. It's very good to see you.
You too. Thank you for having me.
I think I want to start with that question in my introduction, talking about who do we hold responsible? I know it's really a big one, but I would ask you that question. Where do we start from? We had this seamless for a long while, but all of a sudden, the table is turning round.
Yes, thanks for that question, Tolulope. So it's a number of factors. So we know that petrol in Nigeria is subsidized, and up until now, it wasn't a struggle for the NNPC to keep subsidized and the government to keep subsidizing petrol. But with everything that's happened this year, the subsidy has become unsustainable. And by that, I'm just referring to the hike in diesel costs, hike in cost of everything. In fact, inflation in Nigeria is at over 20% currently. And this just means that the cost of everything have increased. Our crude oil production is also down. And as we know, the NNPC pays for the petrol subsidy with their revenue from crude oil. And so with crude oil down, diesel prices up, all these factors have just meant that the subsidy is now too expensive. We'll get into the details later, but that's just what's happening. The subsidy is now too expensive, and it's now causing, it has now made the petrol supply business inefficient, because you have the subsidy, but then the cost that marketers are bearing is much more than the cost that the price they're allowed to charge. And that's just what's causing and fueling most of the issues that we're seeing today.
I'm a realist. I don't know how much you bought fuel in your location, but if I want to queue in my location where I stay, I'll buy within 165 and 170 naira. That's in a major filling station. That's for the major marketers. But if I'm to buy at A and B or whatever name filling station, which is owned by the independent marketers or other kind of marketers, I'll drive in and buy for 250 naira per litre or 230 naira per litre. Depends on where and how it is. So this shows clearly that we might not be able to sustain this 170 naira per litre. What do you think, Noelle?
Exactly, that's what it shows, because for independent marketers, so when petrol, so looking at how the petrol value chain runs,
yes,
we know that NNPC imports petrol, and when it comes in, so marketers, some independent marketers, they have to get vessels to the high seas to offload some of these the petrol stocks. And with higher diesel, so these vessels run on diesel, their depots run on diesel, transportation trucks, diesel trucks that carry petrol around the country, they run on diesel. So this means that they have higher costs. And you also have to bear in mind that some of these costs are in dollars, and they're sourcing these dollars at the black market rate because of the dollar scarcity that we're seeing, where the CBN is not releasing dollars at the official rate because we don't have enough dollars anymore. And so this just means that these marketers are bearing high costs, but they're not allowed to pass them on to consumers. And so it's causing scarcity. And on the other hand, the ones that are agreeing to sell, they're increasing their prices so that they can actually make some money from the business that they're doing. If not, then what's the point of even being in business at all?
No, very brilliant one there. But something worries me. I don't know if you can help me out of it. And this is it. why do some of the depot owners, I guess, now have to pay the likes of MPA, the likes of NIMASA in dollars? And we know what we face as a country with the forex scarcity. I don't know if you can help me understand this. I'm lost here.
Exactly. So the commodities that they are buying, these imports are valued in dollars. And that means that the charges that MPA and NIMASA charge are percentages of the percentages of the values of the goods that they are getting in. So that means that these costs are also in dollars. And it's just the reality of the situation that we're in Nigeria right now, where the government is not earning enough, and it all comes down to crude oil. So crude oil revenue, because of oil theft, is down, and that's one of our major sources of forex. And so we're not earning enough from forex. The NNPC is also having difficulty getting petrol supplies, because we swap crude for petrol. That's how we get petrol in Nigeria, or we exchange cash for petrol. So because crude oil revenues are down, we don't have enough dollars for swaps. We don't have enough dollars to get cash, that's dollars in cash. And it's just trickling down to where we're seeing an exchange rate of over 700 naira for a dollar. And in pounds, that's even like 1,000 naira to a pound. So it's just, everything is just all connected. And it's just showing that Nigeria's fiscal situation is really bad right now.
It's really bad right now. Let's move on very quickly it brings us to the discussion around deregulation, which would be the argument. Well, let's let subsidy go. Let's let it go and pay for it. But many will tell you subsidy out of field at the moment will be buying PMS for as much as almost 400 naira, calculating using a regular calculation that we have at hand. But with the present situation, in your thoughts, Noel, do you think deregulation is the way out? We are not refining.
Yes, so it depends on what Nigerians want. So if we want supply of petrol, you don't want to deal with scarcity anymore, then we need deregulation. If we want to keep the petrol subsidy, the costs are also there. So that means lower revenue for the government, lower revenue for infrastructure projects, education, roads, and all sorts. It also means the petrol value chain will continue to be inefficient, will continue to have scarcity for prolonged periods like we're having now. This year alone, I can't count how many scarcity events we've had. And that's just because of the inefficiency in the value chain. So deregulation will fix these bottlenecks, but it will also mean more expensive petrol for Nigerians. And that's where the government comes in. So we know that Nigerians are poor and the poverty rates are getting higher every day. But also, what's interesting is that the poorest Nigerians don't even benefit from the petrol subsidy, because data from the World Bank and all sources have just shown that the petrol subsidy benefits the richer people in society more than the poor. So instead of the subsidy, there are other kinds of benefits that the government can target towards poor Nigerians if we want to lift people out of poverty. But the subsidy is not lifting anyone out of poverty, and instead is even making people poorer, like marketers, and just making value chains just so stressful and inefficient.
Because even for me as a person, I can confirm to you, diesel sells, like you said, around 800 naira per litre. Now, the tanker drivers will load PMS from Lagos, and you're going as far as Maiduguri. You can't tell me that the tanker driver will charge the same amount it's been charging when diesel was 300 naira and charge the same amount at 800 naira and sell that PMS at 170. For me, this is not, I don't see how you can do that arithmetic. It's far beyond me. So clearly, let's start to look for solutions now. If we are to even ease the situation, what do you think can be done? Can NNPC continue? It's a company now, limited liability company. They can't continue to just take on debts or bills. They have to make profit. It's like a 2-in-1 question. Take it up. I don't know. Honestly, it's worrisome.
Yeah, exactly. NNPC is a private company now, And that means that their new focus should be on maximizing profits for their shareholders. And they can't do that when they're shouldering a subsidy bill. In July, the subsidy took up 100% of their revenue. So NNPC is not even making money from oil and gas because of the subsidy and also crude oil production issues. But also, like, I like the point you mentioned about the truck drivers. And I think that one solution there would be for Nigeria to use pipelines to transport our petrol. But then the issue there is the issue that we're seeing also with crude oil and even gas to an extent, and that's vandalism. So pipelines are vandalized, and that means that we have to transport petrol via truck. So we have pipelines that should take petrol to all parts of the country, and we won't need as many trucks as we do now. But because of vandalism of pipelines, we now have to rely on trucks, which are more expensive. They run on diesel. It takes more time. It's more inefficient. They have to deal with bad roads and all sorts of inconveniences. So there are fixes around some of the issues, but there's also the problem is that the subsidy removes that incentive for people to even want to minimize their losses. So, for instance, if we didn't have a subsidy, maybe some operators in the downstream value chain will know that if we fix these pipelines, it means we can save more costs, we can make more money. But as it is, with prices capped, there's a cap on how much they can make. So even if pipelines were fixed, it won't affect the efficiency of their operations or even how much they can make. And so what I'm saying is that at the end of the day, it all comes down to the subsidy. At the end, the subsidy is the bottom line, and it's what's affecting the rest of the value chain, I guess.
So it sounds interesting, but it's a worrisome. I must tell you, it is really worrisome because many would also argue that if subsidy is removed outrightly, the impact on the masses, you also alluded to that now, talking about the poverty level and all of that. It takes me back to the suggestion that has been on before. I think a phased removal would work, and that ought to have started when crude was so down at a particular time. What do you think? That will be a little gradual, and the impact won't be so hardly felt.
Exactly. So Nigeria has had a petrol subsidy since like the 1970s, and it was introduced then because there was a petrol price hike, and it was supposed to be temporary, but we're in 2022 now, almost 50 years later, and we still have the subsidy in place. So you're right, a phase removal would be better. Other countries have tried this method, Indonesia and other countries, even Ghana, like they've had phase removals where the government, like in Nigeria now, the government has said in June that they intend to remove the subsidy. What we would have expected is that by now there'll be communication, there'll be timetables, there'll be like just PR and communication.
Yeah, like a roadmap to what will happen when it's removed.
Exactly. A roadmap telling people what to expect. Exactly. A roadmap telling people what to expect and when to expect it, what's going to happen, and even explaining to people why we need to remove the subsidy. Because me and you and I might understand the reasons, but there are some people that don't understand what the government is going through, what the NNPC is going through, how the petrol subsidy is linked to our petrol scarcity that we keep seeing. So it will be good to educate people. And I think that now is the time to start, but even late if we want to remove it by June, because educating Nigerians, there are 200 million Nigerians, and there are people in like remote areas that don't even have access to technology. So how is this information going to get to them? I think that a phase removal is one thing, but also like just making sure that the communication is clear and people understand why this subsidy has to be removed, and also putting in place other benefits in the short term, especially, so that when the subsidy is removed, people don't feel the impact immediately and they have like a sort of buffer, maybe direct cash payments or other sorts of incentives and benefits that Nigerians can just enjoy, so that they see that the government cares about us and there's a reason why the subsidy is being removed. I think that's something that's missing.
Honestly, it's a big one. Noel, I am worried. I don't know if you are, but I am worried. And in 1 minute before I let you go, that other argument, speaking to different analysts, is the fact that diesel has been deregulated, kerosene deregulated. I know you've heard this before. And they will tell you that, what are the positives? Why do you think that we'll throw our weight behind petrol being totally deregulated? Are you sure we would not buy PMS for as much as 1,000 naira per liter one day.
Yes, so I mean, the benefits of deregulation are clear. I mean, you've never heard about diesel scarcity. It's I don't think I've ever heard diesel scarcity in Nigeria or, yeah. So basically, removing the subsidy, another thing removing the subsidy that you don't hear about smuggling diesel. So we know that Nigeria's petrol demand is said to be 65 million liters per day, but that's not even close to true because a lot of our petrol is smuggled to neighboring countries where it can be sold at higher prices. Yeah. And this just means that the government is spending a lot more than it should. And there's just a lot of inefficiency all around with regulated markets that we can't avoid, from supply issues to smuggling, and it just creates all sorts of problems, honestly, that the government can't even afford anymore. Maybe if it was a different time when Nigeria was making lots of money from crude oil, then we could keep it on. But as we're seeing, the government is on a cash drive, like you were talking about with your other guest about sugar taxes, because the government is looking for money. And yeah, so we just can't afford the subsidy anymore.
All right, then I must thank you so much for your time. It's always nice talking to you, Senior Energy Analyst, Stirrers Business, Noel Okodi. Thank you so much. Do enjoy the rest of your day. I appreciate this.
Thank you. You too. Bye.